Have you ever wondered how a brilliant young student walking across her university campus in broad daylight could be shot in the head without anyone seeing or hearing a thing? No clear motive, no weapon found, and suspects who may have been chosen simply to satisfy public pressure. The Marta Russo case shocked Italy in the late 1990s, not just because of the cold-blooded nature of the killing, but because of the disturbing twists that followed: shifting witness testimonies, questionable police tactics, and a trial that left more questions than answers. Today, we dive into one of Italy's most controversial and haunting criminal cases, a mystery where justice may have taken a dangerous wrong turn. Stay with us. What you're about to hear might change how you view truth, justice, and everything in between. The Marta Russo case not only shocked Italy in the late 1990s, but also became a symbol of unsolved mysteries in the history of criminal justice. The sudden death of a promising young woman on the campus of Sapienza University, a place considered a beacon of intellectualism and enlightenment, left society in a state of profound shock. Behind that tragic event, the doubts, controversies, and inscrutable motives of those accused created a story both heartbreaking and mysterious. Today's story will show how carelessness can lead to devastating consequences once an investigation begins. Often, the surrounding circumstances complicate the inquiry. Unfortunately, some detectives manipulate these complexities to fit their own narratives. This can result in controversial cases like the one we're discussing today that remain full of unanswered questions. Marta Russo, born in 1975, was described as intelligent, energetic, and full of promise. At the time of the incident, Marta had just turned 22 in March. She was a young and beautiful law student at the prestigious Sapienza University of Rome, fulfilling her long-held dream of attending this historic institution. Marta had ambitious plans for her future and aspired to become a lawyer. Before achieving that goal, she needed to complete her degree. Known for her compassionate and sociable nature, she was always eager to help others and had even expressed a wish to donate her organs in the event of her death. On the morning of May 9, 1997, she was having an ordinary day, walking on campus with her friend Rosanna Capone. The two were moving between the buildings of the university's statistics, politics, and law departments, carrying textbooks and notebooks and discussing their upcoming exams. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Suddenly, at 11:42 Rosanna heard a strange clicking sound, and Marta collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Rosanna suspected it might have been a weapon, but she wasn't sure. Several witnesses rushed over to help. Other passers-by dismissed Rosanna's belief that Marta had been attacked. The idea of a violent act in broad daylight, in such a public and academic setting, seemed too implausible. Those doubts quickly vanished when a pool of blood began to form beneath Marta's head. Who would attack a defenseless student in the middle of the day? In a university courtyard full of people, it seemed unthinkable. A small bullet hole was discovered in Marta's left ear, indicating that the bullet had entered her brain. Bystanders immediately called for an ambulance. Marta was still alive but in critical condition and was rushed to the hospital. At the clinic, she fell into a coma. Her brain activity ceased, but life support was maintained in hopes of a miracle. Her parents prayed she would recover, but doctors recognized that her chances were minimal. Even if she regained consciousness, it was almost certain she would remain permanently disabled. Meanwhile, forensic experts examined the crime scene, an open corridor between two university buildings. One side featured a facade with several windows, while the opposite side was a blank wall, with a few sparse trees lining the space. Detectives tried to determine the shooter's location. Unfortunately, Marta's friend couldn't say exactly where the sound had come from. It had been faint, and she was the only person who heard it. Another obstacle arose. Marta's body had been moved several times during efforts to help her, complicating attempts to establish her precise position at the time of the shooting, a key detail in locating the shooter. To understand who could have had the motive or even the idea to shoot an ordinary student, the police began investigating Marta's background. Some investigators initially considered whether she may have been linked to criminal activity or had dangerous acquaintances, but the investigation revealed no such connections. Marta was a kind, ordinary student. Her friends were also typical university peers. She had not been in a relationship recently, spending most of her time studying. Even her diary entries, which were examined closely, revealed nothing suspicious. The investigators began to suspect that Rosanna was the killer's true target, and that Marta was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, killed by accident. The police had gathered some remarkable information in the days leading up to the murder. Rosanna received 45 anonymous phone calls, which were quite unusual. In one call, she answered. There was only silence on the other end, providing no information. Additionally, an unknown man called Rosanna's father late at night. The call led to a heated argument in which the caller insulted Rosanna but never revealed his identity. With this information, the police began to believe that the attacker intended to kill Rosanna, but mistakenly killed Marta instead. They considered the possibility that the attack was a failed act of revenge against Rosanna's father, an influential official who oversaw several prisons. Investigators thought the murder could have been carried out by a former inmate. After investigating these theories, detectives ultimately found them unconvincing. While Rosanna's father may have had enemies, there was no evidence to suggest a motive for harming his family. Another hypothesis was put forward despite its prestige. The university had a poor reputation. There had been multiple uprisings and spontaneous attacks on campus. Such incidents occurred with alarming frequency. This university was even the site of a terrorist attack on February 12, 1980. Unknown assailants rioted in the lobby of one of the academic buildings, armed with weapons. While a professor was present, he was attacked 7 times and died as a result. This was not an isolated incident. It took place during a time of heightened political tension, with similar outbreaks linked to the so-called Red Brigades. On March 27, 1985, a university economics professor was killed in another attack by unknown criminals. The Red Brigades claimed responsibility, stating the acts were part of their political struggle. The murder of Marta and even Rosanna in 1997 appeared to be senseless acts of violence in this context. Another detail supporting this theory was the coincidence that May 9th marked the anniversary of the discovery of Aldo Moro's body. A prominent political figure, it is believed that on this occasion, the Red Brigades decided to launch a new artillery attack. In previous incidents, the Red Brigades had openly admitted to their crimes. Yet this time, no one claimed responsibility for the attack on Marta Russo. This was illogical, as it would have made more political sense to target a university professor rather than an ordinary student. As police investigated, doctors tried to save Marta. A surgeon removed a .22 caliber bullet from her head, which was then sent to a lab for analysis. At this point, ballistics experts believed the faint noise heard during the shooting was likely due to either the use of a silencer or the type of weapon, which may have produced a quieter sound, especially at a distance, making it hard to detect. The .22 caliber weapon was a common choice, as it has low stopping power and produces significantly less noise than other firearms. Forensic experts attempted to reconstruct the bullet's trajectory to identify potential shooting locations, because the body had been moved. Their efforts were ultimately insufficient and likely inaccurate. The investigation indicated that the attacker likely fired from a building across the street from where the victim had been walking. It was presumed that the shot was fired from a window. Calculations suggested the shooter was in a bathroom adjacent to classrooms where statistics students were studying. Given the low number of students present at that time, the location would have allowed the attacker to remain unnoticed and escape without drawing attention. The day after the attack, this theory was supported by a statement from a statistics student who reported visiting the bathroom shortly after the incident. He noticed that the window was wide open, even though it was usually kept closed. Detectives focused their efforts on that area, including the street beneath the window. They quickly located the weapon's shell casing, which had been overlooked on the first day because it was hidden under a car. To the surprise of ballistic experts, the casing did not match the bullet that had killed Marta. Investigators found numerous bullet holes in the wall next to the crime scene. It appeared that the students had used the restroom as a practice range for shooting. Someone had been practicing frequently. A cartridge case discovered at the scene might have come from these sessions. While investigating the restroom, police also uncovered a small nearby room used as a storage area by a cleaning company contracted by the university. Given the trajectory of the bullet, detectives considered this room a possible location from which the criminal might have fired. Access to this room was initially restricted. Investigators conducted thorough checks on all employees of the cleaning company associated with the university. They discovered that many of the employees were firearm enthusiasts with valid licenses. Some of them were even capable of obtaining weapons without a license. Additionally, the storage room contained a significant quantity of ammunition. Investigators found various weapons and equipment, including silencers. They also discovered several different types of bullets, including .22 caliber cartridges. It was noteworthy that the cleaning staff were not scheduled to work from 9:00 a.m. to 2:00 p.m., and no one was expected to be present during that time. The attack on Marta occurred at 11:42 a.m., which fell within this window. Investigators needed to interview all the cleaners, who provided alibis in an effort to clear themselves of suspicion. Eventually, all their information was verified. During the investigation, no illegal firearms were found, as all weapons were properly registered and licensed. The cleaning staff admitted that they occasionally used the wall of a nearby building as a shooting range, but claimed they always practiced from a trailer and took precautions to ensure no one was around. This raised further questions. On May 14th, Marta's life support equipment was turned off, and she was pronounced dead. She had been in a coma for 5 days without regaining consciousness. Her parents and sister honored her final wish by donating her organs. Around 10,000 people attended Marta's funeral, including relatives, friends, students, and local residents who came to pay their respects. Marta's mother later revealed that she had felt an overwhelming sense of anxiety on the morning of the tragedy, which she couldn't shake off. Initially, she thought little of it until the police contacted her about Marta. Public dissatisfaction with the police had been growing due to a series of high-profile unsolved cases. These failures had seriously damaged the reputation of the police in Rome, making it urgently necessary to restore public trust. This pressure provoked a series of decisive actions from the police, which had far-reaching consequences. The investigation began when detectives questioned the librarian, a 36-year-old man who legally owned a suppressor and a .22 caliber firearm, initially considered a suspect. He was later cleared as he had a solid alibi. He was present in the audience at the time of the attack, and multiple witnesses confirmed his presence. Detectives enlisted top forensic experts to search for microscopic gunpowder particles throughout the building. They meticulously examined windowsills, floors, and various surfaces to pinpoint the shooter's location. Unfortunately, Significant time had passed since the incident. The room had been cleaned several times, and rainfall the following day may have washed away evidence from the building's exterior. Investigators searched multiple floors and, after about 3 hours, discovered 2 tiny particles of barium and antimony elements associated with firearms. These particles were not found on the restroom windowsills, but rather in office number 6 on the floor above. In office number 6, a stain on the windowsill was suspected to be gunpowder residue. It was difficult to confirm its relevance, as many employees in the building legally owned firearms, making it challenging to determine who had left the trace. Despite initial doubts, the stain was deemed reliable evidence. Chemical analysis revealed its composition was similar to printer ink or burnt rubber. Investigators focused their attention on office number 6, a likely location for the attack. Based on trajectory calculations, the shot could have originated from almost anywhere on the campus facade, including the roof. Nevertheless, the police identified individuals who had been in that office at the time of the attack. The office was designated for departmental assistance and was accessible to both students and faculty. All those present were questioned. During the investigation, detectives noticed a peculiar pattern. Each individual claimed they had not been in room number 6 at the time of the murder. Investigators suspected this could indicate collusion. While searching the office, they discovered a mobile phone that had placed a call at 11:44 a.m. on the day of the incident, just minutes after the attack. The call was traced to Maria Chiara Lipari, the daughter of a professor. She admitted to being in the room during the call, but claimed she had not seen anyone with a weapon. Maria firmly denied any involvement in the murder, stating that she did not know Marta, had no motive, and did not own a weapon matching the caliber in question. At this point, police were determined to conduct a thorough investigation into office number 6. They decided to interview Maria at the police station. During these interviews, Maria appeared confused and frequently changed her story. She was questioned 13 times, offering new details in nearly every session. She later claimed the investigators were pressuring her. Eventually, she recalled that when she returned to office number 6 to make a phone call, a man had come out to meet her. He mumbled something, perhaps a greeting like hello, but Maria did not recognize him and merely watched as he walked away. Her account changed again afterward. Maria had a confirmed alibi, which ultimately protected her from being charged. She attributed her inconsistent behavior to fear and severe stress. As a result, she was removed from the list of suspects. Unfortunately, her involvement in the case was not yet over. One of the suspects, Salvatore Ferraro, an assistant in philosophy and law, was identified by Maria. He soon began cooperating with police. Maria said she felt compelled to identify him under the threat of being charged herself. She stated that he resembled the man who had exited office number 6 when she entered, though she remained uncertain even in the end. Her story changed frequently, likely due to the mounting pressure she faced. Her first interrogation lasted 14 hours, and investigators continued to question her afterward, intensifying the pressure. Whether Maria can be considered a reliable witness remains unclear. Still, detectives were determined to identify the killer at any cost. To verify Maria's statements, they carried out multiple interrogations with others connected to office number 6. These witnesses provided inconsistent testimonies that contradicted each other. In response, investigators worked diligently to piece the information together. At one point, University Director Bruno Romano intervened, expressing dissatisfaction with how the police were handling the case. She pointed out several procedural violations, including the lack of legal representation during witness interviews. As a result of her complaints, the director herself became a suspect investigated for allegedly covering up the crime to protect the university's reputation. Under intense public pressure, the police were eager to identify a suspect. Everyone they investigated had solid alibis. The focus then shifted to Gabriella Aletto, the secretary to the university head. Maria reported that Gabriella had been in office number 6 shortly before the attack. The police began to exert serious pressure on Gabriella, even going so far as to threaten her. At the same time, they wiretapped the phone in the office where she worked, and even planned to install a hidden camera. During her conversations with investigators, Gabriella faced explicit threats. She was warned that if she didn't identify the murderer, she herself would be accused of the crime. On the 45th anniversary of the incident, Gabriella, wanting to protect her career and personal life, claimed that she was nowhere near office number 6 and had no knowledge of who might be responsible for the murder. She emphasized that a chronic illness had prevented her from being able to use weapons. The detectives were so eager to resolve the case that they even brought in doctors to verify her medical condition. They interrogated Gabriella relentlessly, even involving her son-in-law, who worked in law enforcement, to pressure her into confessing. Despite being a relative, he participated in the effort to force a confession. Eventually, the other detectives left, leaving Gabriella alone with her son-in-law. Despite the circumstances, he was unable to extract a confession from her. The only thing she admitted was that she had indeed been in office number 6. The absence of legal counsel further complicated the situation, driving Gabriella into despair. Meanwhile, on June 11th, authorities arrested director Bruno Romano, charging him with aiding and abetting the murderer, as they suspected he was covering up the crime. Later, when criminal cases were brought against all the investigators for abuse of office, the prosecutor claimed that it was merely a tactic to intimidate those involved. Gabriella, feeling the weight of the intimidation, especially following the director's arrest, lost her composure out of fear. She eventually revealed that on the day of the murder, she saw 2 men in office number 6. One of them drew a weapon while Marta Russo and her friend were standing between the window and the opposite wall. He fired, and Marta fell. Gabriella recalled that the young men appeared panicked and clearly hadn't intended to kill anyone, as they fled in fear. Witnesses identified the gunman as Salvatore Ferraro. The second man was recognized as Giovanni Scattone, a 29-year-old philosophy assistant. After receiving Gabriella's statement, the detectives were able to piece together the case. Initially, the 2 young men didn't appear to be the type to commit a cold-blooded murder, even unintentionally. Investigators were unbothered by the fact that Salvatore and Giovanni did not know Marta and had no clear motive. They both denied any involvement, but Gabriella's testimony made it difficult to dismiss the accusation. A major issue for Salvatore arose from a search of his apartment, where forensic books on the ideal crime were discovered. Investigators quickly assumed this indicated he had plans to commit the perfect murder, although Salvatore claimed the material was for his university research. The investigators argued that forensic science was not a typical subject of study for a philosopher. A significant problem remained. The detectives were never able to find the weapon used to kill Marta. During the trial, both Salvatore and Giovanni maintained a calm demeanor and continued to assert their innocence. There was no direct evidence linking them to the crime, yet the prosecution labeled them ruthless murderers. Although the prosecution leaned heavily on Gabriella's testimony, the jury remained skeptical. Instead, they focused on the traces of gunpowder found on the windowsill of office number 6 and the bullet's trajectory, evidence that was largely speculative and inaccurate. Witnesses who had endured long periods of coercion gave testimony, and trial photos clearly showed that Gabriella and Maria struggled to conceal their fear. The situation echoed the experience of a security guard who had seen the defendants in office number 6. He had once been a suspect, but was cleared after cooperating with the police. During the trial, Gabriella testified that the defendants fled the university after the shooting. But this alone did not prove their involvement in the murder. The defense lawyers for the students pointed out that the particles found on the windowsill were not from a weapon, but rather from car exhaust. This suggested that the attack could have originated from a different window, potentially implicating other individuals. The lawyers argued that the witness testimonies were exaggerated, based on expert reconstructions of the events. Marta's death was believed to have resulted from a tragic accident during a reckless game. The fatal blow was thought to be the result of a series of ricochets, classifying the incident as manslaughter. By the end of the trial in 2001, both defendants were found guilty. Giovanni received a reduced sentence of 5 years for manslaughter and unlawful possession of firearms, having initially been sentenced to 7 years. Salvatore was implicated in the torture of women, but all charges against him were dropped by university officials. After their convictions, both defendants appealed their sentences, prompting a review. The Supreme Court upheld Giovanni's manslaughter conviction, but dismissed the charge of illegal possession of firearms. Consequently, Giovanni's prison time was shortened to 5 years, and he was ordered to pay 300,000 euros in legal fees. This case raises many questions, as there is still uncertainty surrounding the guilt of Giovanni and Salvatore, making it highly controversial. Some supporters feel that justice has been served. Victims of the police officers' actions spoke out, expressing their dissatisfaction and leading to significant public outcry and internal investigations. Their accounts were supported by strong evidence, including several interrogation recordings that contained threats. These victims have expressed their concerns to investigators. Gabriella reported feeling intimidated and unsafe, and highlighted the lack of legal representation during interrogations. Speaking out was risky, as it was believed the police may have had institutional support. Their appeal led to a new investigation, but it quickly ended without any police officers facing consequences. Gabriella and Maria have long been free and are continuing their lives. Gabriella, now over 50, is a philosophy teacher in Rome who has had to decline several opportunities and continues to face criticism. She is married and lives a relatively normal life. Salvatore Ferraro now works as a lawyer. He writes books, appears in media programs, and helps those who have suffered from injustice and cruelty. The most troubling aspect of this case is that, if there was indeed a miscarriage of justice, Marta's killer may still be at large. To help alleviate some of the pain caused by the situation, an exception was made for Marta's family. Marta's mother was permitted to embrace the woman who has lived for 20 years thanks to Marta's donated heart. She is deeply grateful for this gift, recognizing that through this generous act, a part of Marta lives on in others. The Marta Russo case remains one of Italy's most haunting and controversial criminal investigations. The senseless killing of a young, brilliant law student in the heart of a prestigious university shocked the nation not just because of the brutal nature of the act, but because of the unsettling questions it left behind. What began as a search for justice quickly became a complex and often troubling tale of legal uncertainty, investigative pressure, and ethical ambiguity. From the moment Marta was struck by a single, fatal bullet, the case spiraled into a maze of unclear motives, inconsistent testimonies, and questionable police tactics. As detectives pushed to close the case under public and institutional pressure, key witnesses were subjected to intense interrogation without legal counsel, some even coerced into identifying suspects. The lack of direct evidence, the absence of the murder weapon, and the reliance on shaky witness statements cast serious doubt on the integrity of the investigation and the fairness of the trial. Giovanni Scattone and Salvatore Ferraro were ultimately convicted not through incontrovertible proof, but through a narrative stitched together from fear, confusion, and circumstantial evidence. Despite their denials and the inconsistencies surrounding their alleged involvement, they became the face of the crime. Whether they were truly guilty or simply convenient scapegoats remains a deeply divisive issue. This case reveals troubling insights into how justice can be compromised when due process is neglected in favor of expediency. It shows how human error, institutional distrust, and social pressure can shape and possibly distort the outcome of criminal proceedings. For many, justice for Marta Russo remains elusive, and the possibility that her true killer was never found casts a long shadow over the case. Yet, amidst the tragedy, there were moments of profound humanity. Marta's decision to become an organ donor gave new life to others, allowing a part of her to live on and serve as a symbol of compassion and selflessness. In a case fraught with darkness, that legacy offers a rare light, a reminder that even in death, Marta's spirit continues to touch lives in meaningful ways. Ultimately, the Marta Russo case stands not only as a legal mystery, but also as a moral cautionary tale, a reminder of the delicate balance between truth and assumption, justice and vengeance, law and humanity.